surface, wrestling is about people in a ring having a scrap, but look closer and really, it's all about the art of promotion. Sure, you can throw a card together that features the best in-ring performers in the world, but that's not enough. You have to make sure the audience want to watch what's going on. If you're the only show in town, then this is easy peasy, but what's stopping someone else turning up and saying loudly, "We're definitely better, come and watch us instead"? The wrestling promo serves to get those butts in the seats and TVs around the world tuned into the product. Whether a wrestler uses the mic to big themselves up, hype a match against a despised rival, or sell an upcoming live show or pay-per-view, it is a skill worth its weight in gold. Out of the countless great promos we've witnessed throughout the years, there are some that have stood the test of time. Those promos that took a storyline up 10 notches, that drew audiences to the product and made potentially great matches unmissable spectacles. They have become ingrained in the minds of wrestling fans all over the world, and we all have our favourite promos that we can recite off the tops of our heads, throwing cups of coffee around pretending to be Randy Savage, getting told off for threatening to kick your little brother's candy ass like The Rock, or trying to wrap our feeble minds around the equation that is Steiner math. It's often the promos that stick with us and not necessarily the matches, whether they're good, bad, or flat out insane. But today we are here to talk about the best, the promos that had clear purpose and delivered big time, like a postal worker carrying a grandfather clock. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 greatest promos in wrestling history. Join us! Number 10, Jake Roberts at WrestleMania 6. Jake Roberts reinvented the art of the wrestling promo. While his peers like Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan were bombastic, loud, and screamed until they were the color of grimace, Roberts went in a completely different direction. Quiet, brooding, intelligent. Jake realized that by not screaming himself hoarse, the audience had to truly focus and listen to what he was saying. Speak softly, but carry a big stick, or in this case, a bloody massive snake. It worked no matter his focus. If he was heel, his promos felt cold and conniving. If babyface, it made him sound sincere and focused. We're still seeing it today with his work in AEW, his amazing debut Caesar piece showing all the hallmarks of a great Jake promo. But it was during Jake's rivalry with Ted DiBiase that the snake hissed his best work. Angry at how the $1 Million Man flaunted his wealth in the faces of the disadvantaged, Jake took the mic with Mean Gene at WrestleMania 6 and growled at DiBiase for valuing money over human life. If you didn't want to see him DDT laughing Ted's face off before, you definitely did now. Jake capped the whole thing off with the line, "wallowing in the muck of avarice," which not only sounds very cool, but also made me look up what avarice meant and thus boosted my vocabulary. Nice one, Serpent Dude. Number 9, Mark Henry retires. Some promos get better with age. Some might go unappreciated for a long time before being praised, but some are instant classics. Cue Mark Henry and a delightful salmon-colored jacket. Raw, June 17th, 2013. The former ECW and World Heavyweight Champion was joined in ring by WWE Champion John Cena as he looked back at his distinguished time in the company, with due reference to the whole Mae Young hand thing, of course. Henry was never known for his mic skills, but the world's strongest man was poised, articulate, and had genuine emotion in his voice as he formally retired and called down the curtain on a long, illustrious career while heaping praise on Cena from his position as an almost 20-year veteran. Cena handed Henry the WWE title, the only major missing championship from his collection, as Henry thanked his family and told them, "I'm coming home." Cena raised Henry's arm to the applause of the fans before Big Match John was planted with a world's strongest slam and the Hall of Pain was reopened. We had all been played. This whole thing came out of nowhere, and while we were all applauding and thanking Mark, he hit us with a genuine swerve. And right there and then, we realized that we had witnessed greatness. When Henry finally did retire in 2017, he did so quietly, but dusted that pink jacket off when he joined the Hall of Fame class of 2018. Number 8, Shane Douglas disrespects the NWA title. As important as it is to use a promo to boost a match or promote a pay-per-view, using a promo to hype a fledgling promotion can be even more important. You may only have one shot, so you need to give it your all and make damn sure that no one is going to ignore you. AEW knows this all too well, and Cody in particular has delivered several great promos to help put the young promotion on the map. But no one has done it better than Shane Douglas did it in 1994. At the time, Eastern Championship Wrestling was the Philadelphia promotion of a dwindling NWA, and Douglas was its brash young star. The NWA World Heavyweight Championship was up for grabs due to a split with WCW a year prior, and Douglas won a tournament for the vacant title. Overcome with emotion, Douglas took the 10 pounds of gold and paid homage to those who came before him, Harley Race, Jack Briscoe, and his best mate ever, Ric Flair, and then declared that they could all kiss his ass. The franchise yeeted the title and proceeded to bury the NWA, refusing to be the poster boy for a dying organization. Picking up the ECW title, he proclaimed himself ECW World Champion, and like that, the cult of Extreme Championship Wrestling was born. Shane's words expertly summed up what ECW was all about: fighting against tradition, bucking the trend, and making pro wrestling important again. Number 7, Paul Heyman shoots on Vince McMahon. Speaking of ECW, their head honcho Paul Heyman is a bit alright on the mic, isn't he? After ECW's demise, Paulie made his way to WWE in 2001, filling in on commentary in the absence of Jerry Lawler. Soon the invasion reared its ugly head, Heyman dusted off his ECW cap, and once more touted the greatness of the land of the extreme. In the build-up to Survivor Series 2001, Heyman took the mic on an episode of SmackDown and did what he does best: shot from the hip like a disgruntled, skullet-sporting cowboy. Heyman despaired about the state of pro wrestling and how Vince McMahon destroyed the territories and built his empire with the blood of his wrestlers. Most intriguingly, Heyman vented about how Vince McMahon took ECW's identity, repackaged it as attitude, and destroyed Heyman's finest creation in the process. Often, the best heels will make you understand where they're coming from, even if you don't necessarily agree with them, and even the most ardent WWE fan would have to sympathize with Heyman here. It was a thorough character assassination by Paulie, and it's hard to argue with too much of what he said, but props to Vince McMahon, he stood there and took it all on his billion-dollar chin. Heyman also called Taz a fat crap color commentator and promptly got choked out for his words by the human suplex machine. Oh, and Taz, if you're listening, I was just quoting Paul Heyman there. I don't want to be thug life dead, thanks. Number 6, Kane Dudley. Mick Foley is one of the greatest of all time when it comes to psychology and knowing how to make a great character truly come to life. Flitting from comedy to horror to drama to reality in the blink of an eye, Foley understands the power a wrestler has when they hold a microphone in their hand. But equally, he knows how powerful fan opinion is. While part of the ECW roster as Cactus Jack, Foley engaged in his anti-hardcore promos during a feud with Tommy Dreamer, which are some of the greatest in history. The whole thing was sparked off by a fan sign consisting of 2 simple words: Kane Dewey. Dewey Foley was 3 years old at the time, and the sign was advocating that Foley should beat his child. Mick saw it, and it broke his heart. Foley bared his soul and took out all his anger and frustration and articulated through tears what that sign proved to him: that no matter how much he put his body on the line for the fans, they will always regard him as a piece of meat. As Mick went on to lament the fact he swapped his well-paid life in WCW for an ECW tenure filled with blood and violence, it became even harder to see where the man Mick Foley ended and the character Cactus Jack began. When asked about the promo over 20 years later, Dewey himself admitted he thought it was cool that he was mentioned on a sign, but even cooler that his dad had his back. Aww. Number 5, Who's Your Daddy, Montreal? Most of us love Shawn Michaels. The Heartbreak Kid is one of the greatest ever to lace a pair of boots, and fans around the world adore him for it. But when Hulk Hogan came back to WWE in 2005 for a match against Michaels, WWE needed us all to hate Michaels again, and fast. Luckily, would you know it, there was an episode of Raw scheduled for Montreal. Oh good. 8 years removed from Survivor Series 97, and there was still no love lost between the city and HBK. Just the opening sting of Sexy Boy was enough to piss off the Canadian fans in attendance, but this was nothing compared to what was about to play out. After asking the immortal question, "Who's your daddy, Montreal?" Michaels dialed the heat meter up to 11 by singing about how much he hates Canada to the Canadian national anthem no less, and then proceeded to lay into Hulk Hogan. But the fans wouldn't let him get more than 3 words out, blasting Michaels with "You screwed Brett" chants. Michaels stopped in his tracks and gloated about how he ended Hart's career, but then proceeded to fill his undies when the Hitman's theme blared out for the first time since that fateful Survivor Series night. HBK looked like he had seen a ghost, and the Canadian fans went absolutely bonkers, until it dawned on them that Hart was nowhere to be seen, and Michaels once again had the upper hand in Montreal. You want to talk about heat? This was hotter than a chili eating contest on Mercury. Number 4, Ric Flair at the 1992 Royal Rumble. How do you pick just one Ric Flair promo? In an era of manly men with sideburns and hairy knuckles, Flair rose above to become MVP of the NWA, words falling out of his mouth like verbal gold, enticing viewers to pay their hard-earned money to see this peroxide loudmouth get shut up for good. While his limo-riding, jet-flying shtick has become the stuff of legend and is still referenced today by wrestlers, fans, and even wider sports stars alike, it's Flair's impassioned promo after winning the 1992 Royal Rumble that stands head and shoulders above the rest. Flanked by associates Bobby Heenan and Mr. Perfect, Flair was sweaty, knackered, and looking every inch the man who just wrestled for over an hour, but it didn't stop him from cutting the best promo of his career. With a tear in my eye. The greatest moment in Flair's life, he finally got his hands on the WWE title, becoming only the second man in history to have held the WWE and NWA World titles after the original Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. Flair was euphoric, wide-eyed, and while his words could have easily made him a babyface who had overcome the odds to win the most important Rumble in history, he made sure there was an air of cockiness and came across as a man who would kiss himself if he could because he was that damn good. The Rumble itself is still regarded by many as the best ever nearly 30 years later, and this bit of mic work is the cherry on top, made even sweeter by a furious Gene Okerlund telling someone off for smoking off camera. Naughty. Number 3, the pipe bomb. Ah, the pipe bomb, those 6 minutes that made us all sit up and go, bloody hell, that sweaty punk fella is dropping knowledge. A true star-making performance, the pipe bomb was born out of frustration of a CM Punk with one foot potentially out of WWE. After years of so-so booking and having his wings clipped when he was getting any momentum, Punk thought, sod it, if I'm going out, then I'm going out swinging. The pipe bomb broke every rule in the WWE book. Punk called himself a wrestler, not a superstar. He mocked ex-stars by name such as Hulk Hogan and Brock Lesnar, and even mentioned other companies like New Japan and Ring of Honor. It was shocking, it was game-changing, and it inadvertently made WWE cool again. Non-wrestling websites and publications across the world were writing about this promo, and many lapsed fans returned to the fold. People couldn't get enough of Punk because he took no prisoners, told it how it was, and set the bar for every promo produced afterwards. And great promos did spawn from it. AJ Lee had a great pipe bomb of her own on Raw in 2013, despite the Bellas ruining it with their constant shouting. There was The Miz shooting from the heart on Talking Smack when accused of cowardice, and that's without even mentioning the gold Punk came out with after he dropped this first load of oral artillery. Nearly a decade later, and it still packs a punch, but it leaves me asking one question. Hey, Cole Cabana, how you doing? Number 2, Hard Times. While Ric Flair made a name for himself as the epitome of arrogance and flashiness in 80s NWA, Dusty Rhodes became popular as the antithesis of everything the Nature Boy stood for. He was the common man, he was the son of a plumber, he was the American dream. So when Dusty talked about Hard Times, it resonated with fans in ways Rhodes couldn't have imagined. Although NWA champion Flair was getting the better of Dusty time and time again, Dusty knew that his trials were nothing compared to the average American working hard just to get by. The auto workers who were out of work, the long-standing company men who were being replaced by computers. Rhodes tapped into the plight facing his fans in Middle America and still managed to make them care about whether or not he would win the NWA title. The fans knew Rhodes was no phony, and when he bled for the average American just trying to make ends meet. So impactful were Dusty's words that many fans thanked him in person for honoring their plight. Decades after the event, and we're still talking about it. Just say Hard Times to fans of a certain age, and they'll probably launch into a half-assed Dusty impersonation in tribute. Wrestling is big, it's loud, and sometimes it's absolutely ridiculous. But those rare moments when it feels truly real, they're the ones that stand the test of time. Hard Times was undeniably one of those moments. Number 1, Austin 316. The moment everything changed. King of the Ring 1996, and fresh from opening a can of whoop-ass on Jake Roberts, Stone Cold Steve Austin was reigning supreme. Before the Texas Rattlesnake could truly celebrate, though, he wanted to speak his mind. Gloating about his emphatic victory over the veteran born-again Christian Roberts, Austin uttered the phrase that would make him a megastar. You talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16, Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass. Austin was already carving himself a reputation in WWE as a no-nonsense, trash-talking hardcase, but this promo solidified his status, and soon the bionic redneck became the biggest star the industry had ever seen, saving WWE and becoming the driving force in the fight against WCW in the Monday Night Wars. It was clear by the next episode of Raw how much this one little phrase resonated with the fans, as it was plastered on signs all over the arena as far as the eye could see. Smelling money in the air like a mad capitalist shark, WWE produced the Austin 3:16 t-shirt, and it quickly became the best-selling of all time. I mean, so renowned is this promo that every March 16th, wrestling fans and ordinary people alike celebrate 16-3 Day in honor of Stone Cold and every poor bastard he gave a stunner to. What do you mean 3/16 Day? There aren't 16 months in a year, idiot. Regardless, this promo laid the foundations for one of the greatest runs of any wrestler in history and changed the course of the industry forever. Now give me a heck yeah!